Okay, 3. Are you ready? Because we've wasted like 20 minutes.
I'm ready.
3:30. There was a miscommunication about the time zone. He thought it was 7 Pacific time. They didn't tell him it was Eastern time.
Typical.
So, guys, he will be able to do a recording at 10 a.m., 10 p.m. tonight. Do we want to... He's worth it, but do we want to stay till 10 p.m.? Probably not.
We can go have dinner and come back. I don't care.
I don't know, but Noah,
They're not going to let me live in the building, I'm
Noah.
afraid.
Is there someone who comes on at night
Hold
or
on,
no?
hold on.
Who could take your place?
Hey, Noah, can you hear us?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the one thing I can't accommodate.
Okay, thank you, Noah.
Overnight tapings.
It's not overnight. It's 10 p.m. You've done.
Yeah, but that's...
We got.
I know. No,
We're kidding. Do you have anyone else though?
You answered this very diplomatically, Noah. I'd be like, hell no. Okay. Ready. 3. And let's go live on YouTube too. We can have YouTube questions.
Yep.
Death of the Stretch. 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback, coming to you live. And we're on YouTube, and we're also on iHeartRadio app, Spotify, WOR710am.com. And you get to ask me any financial question you have right now on YouTube. If you have a question on stocks, bonds, annuities, mutual funds, no question is a dumb one, except the one that you do not ask. So we're talking about the death of the Stretch IRA. We're also going to talk and add this in the the memo for YouTube. China tech. China kind of blew up on Monday. What's that all about? The Evergrande debacle. We're talking about crypto and whatever you want to talk about as well. I'm going to also give you some rules for financial success as we talk globally on what to do with your own portfolio in these uncertain times. So call us 888-988-JOSH today and you get a free 2-for-1 special. The 45-minute ultimate financial game plan with me and Greg Racky, estate planning attorney, is offered a free consult as well. So it's a great 2-for-1 special. So let's first talk about China. You have an update on China, Ernesto. You have a friend in a hedge fund. What does he say to do?
My buddy in a hedge fund said that I should be shorting everything Chinese tech still, and just do my patriotic duty to short Chinese companies in general.
And he said to do that now. And by the way, we're not recommending you short. I don't see the point. Chinese tech is already down like 50%. I think it's a good value. Now, I don't like China's communism, but if you look at the internet ecosystem of China, you got NIO, which does cars, you got Tata, you have companies like Tencent. I don't see, which I own, I don't see how Tencent's going under. I don't see how Baba's going under. I view China now like it would be like selling a stock in the middle of the March 2020 COVID crisis. Like they're already in their crisis. This is a big financial tip that I want to give everybody. Also, China banning crypto transactions. Yahoo Finance says it's great for crypto. I don't know why that's the case. Isan Fanusi, we should get this person on the show, says it's great news for Bitcoin. I don't know, maybe look at that. Why? Bitcoin may actually benefit from China's recent decision to ban all cryptocurrency transactions, according to Ross Gerber Kawasaki. This is great news for Bitcoin. He says the last thing we want is China to be involved in a currency of the world. Now, here's a problem. A lot of the mining, this is a problem with Bitcoin that not one Bitcoin bull has ever answered for me. Now, I'm not anti-Bitcoin. I think it'll do very well over the time. I think it's the internet of money. I could certainly see Bitcoin go to 100,000 over the next, year or two. I think it'll be a rocky road. With any logarithmic technology, do you know what a logarithmic technology is? It's like a log chart goes 0, 1,000, 100,000, a million. It's sort of like what happened to like Amazon stock or Tesla stock. People thought, oh, how did it go high when it was worthless? Because there were for years where Tesla didn't make money and Amazon didn't make any money because it was a revolutionary technology. And Bitcoin is that revolutionary technology, in a sense, the internet of money with the Lightning Network framework. The one worry I have is China owning, I actually probably agree with Gerber, Kawasaki's Ross Gerber, that it's probably good news for Bitcoin. The last thing we want is China to be involved in a currency of the world. But back to China tech, and then we talk about China Evergrande crisis, we talk about China and Bitcoin. But I'm a big believer in China tech, particularly some of the cars, Tata, you have Baba, you have Alibaba's like the Amazon of China. I mean, so yes, they're going to be involved in problems. They're going to try to flex their collective muscle against these companies that are becoming behemoths, just like the U.S. government does, right? With Facebook, they call them in, they find them. But why would they derail one of the biggest companies in the world? Like, do you know, for example, that Tencent owned Spotify? So I get people say, well, I love all the people. I'm not going to invest in communist China. Every Hollywood movie you watch. You ever watch Mulan? Mulan 20 years ago, different than the Mulan now. Why? The Chinese Communist Party was influential. Now, part of me wants to tell everyone to divest from China because it's a horrible country, beautiful people, wonderful people, but the Communist Chinese Party and what they do to people is wrong. What they did to us with COVID, wrong. So I get, your friend's thing of, hey, short them. I get the sentiment, but to look at a whole country indiscriminately and say there's no value there, I just don't see that. If you look at Tesla, I think Elon Musk was giving praise to Chairman Mao, like in the last week. I don't know if you want to look at that article. He was like, oh, well, we be the beloved country, So what's crazy, by the way, is all the U.S. companies that kissed the ring to China without regard to us and without regard to the human rights abuses. They were more interested in the Texas abortion law than in China forcing people to have one child per family. So I say shame on all these big tech companies that were silent to the abuses of China. I have a lot of problems with, I was one of the first people 10 years ago, to call out a lot of Wall Street. But are we calling out Elon Musk? Elon Musk slammed this week for praising China as truly amazing. Why? Because he wants the buyers. And Elon's no dummy. This was, he's done this every year. He comes on these various things and tweets about the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party rule. Probably killed more people than Hitler, by the way. How many people have the Communist Party killed? Look up that.
Hundreds, more
like
than
100 million. Something crazy. Look up that, Ernesto. So, this video might get taken down by YouTube, by Google, because it is an affront to the Communist Party of China. So, here's the problem. That's a big problem. I get the sentiment, but the reality is there are so many customers there. They're an advancing economy, and they have advancing technology. So do you know Fortnite, that video game your grandkids play? That's a Chinese company. Did you know Hollywood is mostly backed now by the Chinese? And TikTok the app that was supposedly banned, not banned anymore. So is it a problem? Yes. Is it a national security problem? Yes. But from an investing perspective, there's still opportunity there. And I still see the Chinese internet ecosystem way above certain U.S. technology. So Huawei, right? Everybody said Huawei bad. Do you know about Huawei? Most people don't even know what Huawei does with their phones. But with the 5G technology, they're so far above where we were that we can't get rid of them. Can't get rid of Huawei because we needed them. So they talked all this negativity on Huawei, and then remember that? Like China said, we're going to ban Huawei. I think Huawei's still doing business with the U.S. So that's my point, though. Because when our kids go to college and they drink and they party, their kids go to college and they figure out how they can build new internet ecosystems, how they can add to 5G. This is a problem, by the way, societally, that we have to repel. The founders of our country were like 24 when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, a lot of them. I think Ben Franklin was like the oldest founding father, but most of them were in their 20s. We have to, as a society, say we're not going to accept mediocrity from our kids. Chasing booze and drugs. And now I did a study. Do you know that the number one, I want you to research this for me, Ernesto. The number one category of people smoking pot, I'm on fire today, are like 20-somethings and 30-somethings. So instead of changing the world, they're frying their brain cells. But it's legal. You know what? I don't care if it's legal. If it makes you dumber, there's something wrong. So what is it? It's like the fastest growing group using pot are like people 25 to 34, or it might even be like people in their 40s. So is this the new one? But this might be an old one. No, that's a July 2021. You got to get July 2019 poll. So here's the thing. I mean, that worries me. So as long as our kids smoke pot and party in college and theirs don't, we're going to see massive developments. So how do we rise above that? But anyway, I see opportunity in what happened with China. Who likes, you always want to buy low and sell high. So in the interest of full disclosure, I own some of the stuff, but you might say, well, I don't own any of it. Yes, you do. If you own Disney, they're kowtowing to the Chinese Communist Party. If you own Google, Amazon, Tesla, now, Elon's like Chairman Mao. So there's a lot of issues. So China banning Bitcoin in the news today. The news this week. China Evergrande crisis. I don't think it's going to be this major. Could I be wrong? Sure. But
a lot of the major banks hold equity in Evergrande.
Here's the thing. Well, no, I'm not saying Evergrande's
debt.
Not a big deal. That could be a big deal. But could it cause the market to go down 5 or 10% in the next couple of weeks? Sure. We saw that with Monday. Then all week it rebounded. I think we're due for a little correction. But maybe a 10% correction. I think it's not going to really spell doom for the bull market. Now, Bitcoin is pretty crazy in China, what's going on. I think China's this is interesting. Senator Toomey wrote in this tweet, China's authoritarian crackdown on crypto, including Bitcoin, is a big opportunity for the U.S. It's also a reminder of our huge structural advantage over China. Now, mind you, how much of all the mining of Bitcoin is done in China? Get that stat. You have to Google on the 2021, I think 2021 marijuana group fastest growing users or something. And then it's crazy. Support for legal marijuana is at an all-time high. Yeah, because everybody's brains are fried. It's a shame. But no judgment here, but it could be a real, issue long term. Share of Bitcoin mining falls. China accounts for how much? Cambridge University research showed China accounted, this is from CNBC's Ryan Brown, that, and then I get hit with an ad for The Prophet. The Prophet was a good show. I think it's boring now. Do you watch The Prophet?
I don't.
Marcus Lemonis. We should have him on as a guest. I was into it for a number of years. He would go in, he would save businesses. Then it kind of got boring. I don't know if anybody felt that. So Kazakhstan saw an almost six-fold increase in its share of global Bitcoin mining in the same period, climbing to 8.2% from 1.4%. 75.5% of all Bitcoin mining was done in China in September of 2019. Now it's less than half of the power used to mine Bitcoin. So might be 45%. So a lot. We need to be the leader in Bitcoin as a global, phenomenon. It's kind of like the internet of money. So when we return, we'll be back with more of your questions, comments on YouTube. If you have a chat box, we got Tammy from Virginia. She says, drinking and drugging is way too accepted now. Our young people are so dumbed down. And yes, that's what the communists want in an electorate so that they could control us, take advantage of us. And why has that become accepted? If you're paying money for your kid to go to college and they're drinking and drugging now, pull the money. But we accept mediocrity in our children today. You might say, well, Josh, your kids aren't grown yet. Well, I have high expectations for them. They're homeschooled. They read multiple books. But Josh, your kids are homeschooled. They're, anyway, I'll get on my homeschool rant later. When we return, this is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. And folks, during the break, call me at 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-JOSH, and head over to the website retirementrealitycheck.com for 3 powerful gifts when you schedule and keep your no obligation review. Those gifts are the Social Security Maximizer tool, the On Point Risk Analyzer. You get to put in your holdings. You don't have to become a client. We get to show you just how risky your portfolio is. And the third gift is the 45-minute ultimate financial game plan, where you get to see your whole life on one easy to understand page. Give us a call. Don't drop the ball. 888-988-JOSH. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial. And we're back. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. I guess I'm a YouTube mini celebrity. I'm not one of these people yet who make millions on YouTube. I don't think I've made $1 yet on YouTube. So folks, we're incumbent on you to subscribe and tell all your friends. You go to youtube.com and you just search for financial quarterback and you will see me and my ugly mug. And you just hit the subscribe button. You get to see all of our episodes. We just put up Barry Dyke's interview. Where, by the way, he called out Leon Black of Apollo. Did you notice that? And then in this week's, and alleged, we're not saying anything bad about Leon Black, there was some accusations about him this week. We would love to have Leon on the show. He's a behemoth on Wall Street. But there was some negative accusation. It was like, what did Barry know? Did you notice that? Did you catch that? The Leon Black story? Anyway, I don't really want to draw attention to it because it may or may not be true. But it's crazy. So Leon Black was called out by Barry Dyke on last week's YouTube. You could watch it. Go to youtube.com. Do we have both episodes up of Barry Dyke, or we're going to get that up?
We're going to get that up.
Let's
I
get it
believe
up.
We have one up as of yesterday.
So we have one Barry Dyke. Now, Barry Dyke is one of the best researchers in the country on like what people do with their money, from Elizabeth Warren to Janet Yellen, people that are in the news. He knows a lot. So what was I talking about? So we talked about the global share of Bitcoin mining is declining, but they still have 45 to 50%. Pat Toomey is saying this is an opportunity for the U.S. to become a leader in Bitcoin. And it should be. Then we're talking about marijuana and the dumbing down of America's youth. And then I also want to talk about the death of the Stretch IRA. If you have an IRA or 401k, you need to hear about this. I've talked about this on previous shows, but it will never be more clear than I will talk about next. So the death of the Stretch IRA. And folks, if you have a question, put it in the chat box of YouTube. So we talked about marijuana, China, a little Bitcoin news, the Evergrande debacle with China. I don't know. I find that some of these things become big, and then some of these things just another news story, just a part of the fear and greed cycle. You got to be mindful that CNBC or any of these financial news networks operate under the twin principles of fear and greed. They are trying to appeal to that. That's, it's like sex sells in Hollywood. Fear and greed sell in financial news. So that's what draws your attention. The amygdala. We had one of these like behavioral analysts. Remember that guy? I forget who it was. We had a behavioral. Your amygdala, whatever that is, it's in your brain.
Oh, you mean the amygdala? Sorry.
The amygdala, tomato,
yes.
tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. But the amygdala, what is the proper pronunciation? That's the
Well, I'm a biologist.
Yeah, it does look like
is,
amygdala.
It is amygdala.
Amygdala. Well,
amygdala.
I was not. You're a biologist?
I'm a molecular biologist, technically.
Wow. You're like George Costanza. I'm a marine biologist. So a molecular biologist. Wow. So an amygdala hijacked is an emotional response that is immediate, overwhelming, and out of measure with the actual stimulus because it triggered a much more significant emotional threat. The term was coined by Daniel Goleman in his 1996 book, Emotional Intelligence. But that same thing is what CNBC does every time. So if you want to be a successful investor, you have to learn how to hijack your amygdala and reverse hijack, because marketers are trying to hijack that all the time. That fear and greed stimuli. It's like why when you watch people on CNBC, with Kramer, ring, 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 bell, 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 I gotta be doing that stuff. Maybe we'll get more viewers if you do that stuff. But the whole point is we care about what you do with your actual money. We may even care more about your money and your emotions than you do. So like what you even said, your friend, who apparently very knowledgeable, wealthy hedge fund guy, short China, like it gets your attention. Like if you have a well-diversified portfolio, it doesn't really get your attention. But short this, buy this, go long this. And then they have the bull sound, the bear sound. We got to do some of that, I guess. We got to get sound effects. we got to do our own amygdala hijack. So the role of the amygdala, do you know this? I mean, do you want to give us a science lesson?
The amygdala?
Am I right here? I think it detects threats in your brain, right? And it's looking for dangerous stimuli.
It certainly measures the hormones that are and the neuroreceptors that are going through your blood. So yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna lose all your money. Boom.
Or rather, not through your blood, the synapse.
But if you say, "Well, I have a diversified portfolio," it doesn't really get your amygdala.
No synapse firing there.
Do you feel it? Do you feel it? You're
I'm
going to
doing a
lose
measure-
everything.
A measurement right now of
You
my
know,
synapses.
it's why, you know who's an amygdala hijack?
yeah.
Harry Dent is the ultimate amygdala hijack on the show.
I thought of Harry Dent when you were talking about China because Harry Dent, he looks at the pure demographics of China, and he's not very bullish on China.
I'm not bullish long term because of the demographics. I agree with him. But I do think if you look at a company, name the next company that's going to be the next Amazon. Do you see a competitor?
Not in America.
But in China, they have Alibaba and they have Tencent, which are just growing tentacles everywhere. So did you know, like Tencent, they own WeChat. Then they own the WhatsApp equivalent in China. Then they own the Apple Pay equivalent. Then they own the YouTube. I mean, it's like an octopus. Then they own, okay, here we go. Then we own Spotify in the US. Then we own Epic Games in the US. Then we own Riot Games in the US. Then we own, some Hollywood interests. So they just keep like morphing. It's like, how did what do you call it got so big? TikTok. Because we let it. So what the Chinese government is doing is I think they're just sending a warning to these guys like, hey, we got you that big. We gave you, and probably this will happen to the US government. They will determine that those companies, it's already happening, by the way, the companies that curry favor with the party elite, we're going to let you become so big. Think about Facebook. They own, I remember I said Facebook was a great buy stock 4 years ago, and people go, well, I don't like Mark Zuckerberg because it's the same thing with China, right? Like, I'm not here to
say they're good people.
Yeah, I'm not giving my political agreement here. We got Tammy who has a question on YouTube. Do you think cash is safe in the bank? That's another amygdala response. I'm sure many of you have seen like the warning, the government will bail in your cash. Here's the thing, folks. If that happens, we're all kind of screwed, right? Like, get a Berkey water filtration system. Get a Costco 1 year supply. Do I think that could happen in the U.S.? Maybe. I'm not Pollyanna over here. But like, what is it going to do to be so frightened that you don't do anything with your money? Have a cash stash if that makes you feel comfortable. Have the old money in your mattress if that makes you feel comfortable. But are you really gonna have $100,000 in your mattress? Then you might lose it. I had an old Italian client, as he was getting dementia, his wife called and said, I don't know where he put the money. I know we have $100,000 in the account in the house somewhere, but like, where is it? I said, check the duct vent work. She found, here was $2,000. She's like, where's the other $88,000? So there are problems with that. So Tammy from Virginia, thanks for watching, Tammy. Do you think cash is safe in the bank? I think you should have a strategy. Yes, I generally think cash is safe in the bank. But I think to have 6 months food supply in your house, good idea. Because here's the thing, if there's some crisis, yeah, the government will say, hey, you can only take out $300 a day from the bank. Could I see that happen? Sure. Could I see $1,000? We had the Biden administration said they're gonna report transactions above $600. Now, part of me is like, good, because there's a lot of people with cash businesses that don't report their taxable income. So if that's what they're trying to go after, fine. But I think the $10,000 limit we have now is fine. If you're taking $600 out, are you really trying to shelter from the government? But every time you pull $600 out, they want to have now a new suspicious activity report. And I haven't heard much. Like, I've heard blowback from people like me, but I haven't heard like...
I just read an article this morning about banks complaining that they can't keep up with the compliance.
There's no mounting like negativity on that. Here's the thing. It used to be 10,000. I think they report people if it's 3,000 now or something, or 5,000. There's like a suspicious activity report, which is 10,000. And there's something called an NAR or a UAR or something like that. So here's my point, people. I'm to give you real actionable tips for your money. And one is you have to reverse amygdala hijack. Because when you get fearful, you can't let it derail your investment dreams. The other thing you got to do is divorce politics from your money. Meaning so many of you, okay, maybe missed out on Facebook because you didn't like Zuckerberg's politics. I'm not here to comment on that. Like, people don't listen to me for my political opining. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to know it. But I don't really care to talk about it. I'll tick off half the listeners if I talk about one thing or the other. But, you know, to me, the reason, and I own Facebook in portfolios and stuff for myself and clients, the idea was they have a monopoly on social media. Older people use Facebook. Younger people use Instagram. People use WhatsApp.
Snapchat.
So they're spying on your messengers. They're doing Snapchat is a totally different company. So Snapchat, by the way, is an interesting stock. We don't recommend it. We're not recommending any stocks, Facebook, Snapchat, or whatever, because you lose your money. But interesting, Snapchat went up like some astronomical percentage from March of 2020 to the present, because everybody's using it to buy lipstick. Apparently, older women, look up this article, see if you find, older women are buying makeup because of, I guess, the Kardashians on Snapchat, which is interesting. So Tammy writes, what is good to invest in now? Do you think the stock market is safe? I mean, stocks could always go down. So you have to build a portfolio that you can live with even if the market goes down 40 to 50%. So it's not an all or nothing. So maybe you having 12 months of your expenses in the bank makes you sleep at night. Maybe it's 24 months of expenses. Maybe having 10 grand at home makes you sleep at night. Maybe having Costco, years worth of food supply, with the powder, and you get that Alfredo that lasts 25 years, chicken Alfredo that lasts 25 years, oatmeal that lasts 30 years. That makes you sleep at night. Getting a water filtration system for your home. Those things make me sleep at night a little bit, being like what's called a suburban survivalist. That's what it's called. We had a guy on the show one time, 10 years ago. The guy wrote a book called The Suburban Survivalist. It's a great book if you want to be prepared for all kinds of weird scenarios. I mean, did anybody think that a virus would shut down the U.S. for almost 18 months, basically? We're 18 months into this virus, and we're still not really back to normal. No, we didn't think that. I remember walking into Costco in April or March and thinking, is this America? We were in lines. So all these businesses were shut down. There was a wraparound line from Starbucks, which is why I believed that the market would recover. I'm like, if everybody's buying $6 coffee, we're going to survive this. We're not in bread lines yet. But it was scary. And then you go to the meat line. There was no meat at Costco. Now, people were hoarding toilet paper. So you got to think, don't, Tammy, I'm there, but this is a classic amygdala response. Don't let preparedness make you not take advantage of opportunity. So at the very least, have half of your money in really conservative stuff for the worst case scenario and have half for the best. I never have anybody do that and they go to me and say, well, I really regret. Now, some people will say, well, I could have made a lot more. I watered down my returns. But if you're really worried about that stuff, have 60% of your money in stocks and 40% in end of the world type stuff. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. And we'll be back after these messages. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback, and I'm going to give you 3 free gifts if you sign up today for our 45-minute ultimate financial review. All you got to do is call us at 888-988-JOSH. You could also sign up for our next webinar that we're going to do. Going to do 2 webinars, free webinars in mid-October. Call us now. If you call us right now and schedule your no obligation 45-minute ultimate financial game plan, we'll give you the 45-minute review and the on-point risk analyzer, and you'll get a ticket. You'll get the punch your ticket for the punch your ticket for the Pro Bowl of webinars. I'll be giving a free webinar if you schedule and keep your no obligation review at 888-988-JOSH. And you get to buy my book also if you go to Retirement Reality Check. Some people say it's great. My mom from heaven said, great book.
I use the book.
You like the book, Ernesto. Ernesto's mom likes the book.
No, my mom, she
got
emailed
the
you
book.
questions.
Well, thank you. So, folks, give us a call, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-JOSH. We'll be back after these messages. And we're back. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. Ernesto is our man on the street. Any questions in light of this whole amygdala response?
The fight or flight response?
Yeah.
I know people, Brother Ted is a YouTube watcher of ours. He's thinking that the real estate market is finally cooling off. He's trying to sell a home in Hoboken, steps from the path. He said he feels it might be priced a little high, but it's the hottest market right now.
I told everybody on the show sell in July, and a lot of people sold in July and they're making money. I don't know, how are we doing late September? Are we seeing a slowdown? I guess Brother Ted is going to be our man on the street. Ask Brother Ted, can he sell his property? So he can't sell it.
It's only been on the market 30 days.
Is he asking more than he should, though? That's
a little
bit.
A little bit.
But that's the thing with real estate, though. You got to price it right. So does he really want to sell it and move to Texas?
He's ready to go to Texas.
He's done with New Jersey.
He's done. He's folding up his company. He's going to reformulate it in Texas.
Well, I'm jealous. But here's the problem with Texas now. Like a fake built 3D printed house in Austin, Texas. Guess how much it's going for?
$500,000.
$750,000. You get a nicer house. Here's what I would do if I'm looking to buy in New Jersey. I would rent for a couple of years, because I do think New Jersey will crash in certain parts with all these people moving to Texas and Florida. Although, you know who's saving New Jersey real estate? New Yorkers. If it wasn't for the New Yorkers, everybody would move. So Adam says, hi, Josh. Hi, Adam. Great to see you. Glad you could join us. Tell all your friends. So we're doing a live YouTube. We're taking all of your financial questions. So Adam, if you have a good question for me, I'll answer any question on YouTube that Tammy, Adam, Brother Ted. So Brother Ted, my advice to Brother Ted is if no one's buying his property in 30 days, in the hottest real estate market, he should cut his price now, 5% below, to get a little bidding war. That would be my advice to Brother Ted.
I did just talk to one of our area's biggest real estate guys, and he thinks that there'll be some sort of pricing correction, but he just sees the market growing and growing.
Well, that's the Jersey Shore market. I think that's a little bit different because people still like the Jersey Shore. Meaning, I have Long Islanders who are clients who, instead of getting a place in the Hamptons, they got a place in LBI. And they love LBI. I have people in North Jersey who are moving to Seaside Park, and they love it. Folks, by the way, if you want to buy down there, and you get to meet me, I live right around the corner. So you get to come visit our headquarters in Toms River, where we will still meet with you, even during COVID. But we will practice safe social distancing. How many feet am I away from you, Ernesto?
Well, there's
Down?
an entire studio of studio equipment between us, but we're about 8 feet.
It's a little too close. Back up. So,
You know what I want to know? When are we doing one of those luncheons where people can meet you, and we usually have speakers like John Muldoon.
should we have
I think so.
John Muldoon?
Yeah.
John Muldoon. That was
Muldoon.
great. He was great.
Amygdala.
The funny thing about John Muldoon going to the seminar, I don't know if he'll do that anymore.
I learned a lot at these seminars.
He's a very virile guy, but I think we did like 3 seminars in like 12 hours or 18 hours, and by the end he was like laying on the floor. He gave a great talk.
Mackie would be great. Mackie, what's her? Mackie McNeil?
Yeah,
she would be
was
great
good.
for that.
Let's get her back. We'll get her back for that. We'll ask her. The thing about now is, does anybody really want to meet during COVID? Adam, Tammy, the chat box, and YouTube, would you go to a live in-person seminar that I would do? I think I'm going to be the guest. If we do live in-person seminar, I'm not going to have any guests anymore. I think I'm going to be the guest, and I'm just going to opine. Adam says, do you think it's a good idea to buy put options on public REITs to prepare for a real estate pullback? Potentially, a lot of REITs were great buys in March of 2020, and they've rebounded. I personally worry about betting against the market because unless you're buying like something that's inverse, let's say the S&P that you can quickly get out of, which does have its risks, meaning when you buy something inverse, when you're short, market goes up, you could lose money. I worry about that because I think the government, if we go through another crash like we had with COVID, I think they will buy stocks. I think we've gone the way of full-blown China. I mean, just think about this. A Republican president, supposedly fiscally conservative, and I'm going to tick people off here. Got a lot of Trump fans who listen. Don't turn the channel. Bought bonds or allowed the Fed to purchase assets to prop up a market. They did not buy stocks. They bought bonds. Now, they sort of did that in 2008. And by the way, it was a genius move by the Fed to prevent a meltdown. So it was a great Donald Trump and Mnuchin and the guy everybody gives a hard time, Powell, really banded together, and that saved us from an 2008. I mean, remember Trump kept saying V-shaped recovery, V-shape. Well, it happened in the stock market. Has not happened with Main Street. A lot of Main Street people are struggling, but it happened with the stock market. And that's not just the rich. I love when people say that's Wall Street. That's your 401k, you idiots. I love when people want to demonize Wall Street, who are politicians. You know what Wall Street is? Your 401k. It's your IRA. It's your future. So, it's like they have the Met Gala, right? And if you, what's AOC had the tax the rich dress. Did you hear about this? But it looked the same as there was this girl, Joy Villa, like a year ago. Now, Adams says Trump also said your 401ks would go to zero if Biden was elected. That is true. That did not happen. The 401k became like a 501k with Biden. But is that due to inflation? Is that due to money printing? Probably yes. So that's the other thing. I do want to specify everybody. Politics, in some sense, we talk about it because there's an overlap. But one mistake I see is the amygdala response. The other investing mistake is people let their political biases affect what they do with their money. Meaning, if you're a conservative, Biden wins, the market's going to go to zero, so you're going to take all your money out of the market. If you're a liberal, Trump wins, you're going to take all your money out of the market. That generally doesn't work. The market tends to go up over time since 1927. Why? Because I'll tell you the simple reason. Prices go up, inflation goes up, the dollar is worth less. So if you look at inflation and you look at stocks, stocks are really a measure of price inflation, in my view. And that's why you invest in them over the long haul. Not that there's anything special about stocks. Interesting other stat that I've seen. Name like the 5 best stocks of the 1900s.
I'm going to tell you right off the top of my head, I would say Bell was around then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say Bell. I say Sears Roebuck.
Performing stocks of the 20th century. I'll Google this. I don't really know.
But all the advances from the telephone and underwater cables for
Kiplinger says 2019. This was from 2019. The 49th best stock, Sears, Roebuck and Company.
Yep.
Annualized return was 10.9%, and now it's worthless. Union Pacific.
Ah, that's right, for the telegram, right?
13.6 annual return from August 69 to December 2016. Where is that now? So this is from, a lot of these are from 2019. United Technologies is on, some of these companies still around. Visa, Cisco. I'd like to see this now. Schlumberger. Remember Schlumberger with the oil spill cratered? Boeing, Amgen on this list, a bunch of stocks. We're not recommending you buy or sell any. But if you look at a lot of these stocks, some of them really cratered. And so you can't always trust the stocks of last year. I looked at over the last 5 years, you would think, okay, like stock market did well. So many stocks didn't do well, like AT&T, IBM, GE, good companies. So why have the overall market done well? We had a guy on who said that basically 50% of the overall gains in the market were responsible, by about 8 to 10 different companies. Fangman, basically. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA, Amazon you could throw in there. And if you throw in Tesla, you might have like 60, 70% of the overall gains. Now, the last year or two, some of the bigger, the smaller companies like a Fiverr or a Snapchat really did well. But the bull market from like 2015 to 2019 was not favorable to a lot of really good companies that you would have thought they'd be favorable to. So when we return from the break, we'll be back with more of your questions. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. And call us right now, 888-988-JOSH, for the no obligation 45-minute wealth blueprint. And we will throw in the on-point risk analyzer. You get to put any ticker symbol you have, any fund you have, and see what are the holdings, what are the risks, what are the fees, what are the taxes. If you want to know that, call us, 888-988-JOSH. 888-988-JOSH. We'll be back after these messages. And we're back. This is Josh Jalinski, the financial quarterback. Do you like physical silver or gold here to protect against inflation? I do, based on the work of David Ranson, who we will have in a future show, one of my favorite all-time guests. Great voice. And the stats go, I got to see Ranson and gold. He did this article on something called the permanent portfolio. So this was how you would construct a portfolio if you want to weather a COVID crash. And what he found that you could do a portfolio with 4 basic asset classes. I don't recommend this. I recommend you have 12 different asset classes. And we could build out a portfolio where you don't have to market time. You could stay diversified. And I think you'll do quite well over the long haul. No guarantees, of course. Past performance does not equal future results. But he did a study, and we'll make it available today, where he compared a 60-40 portfolio. Everybody's doing this, 40-60, 60-40, 80-20. We do it, but we do it way different than anybody else. And I can prove it to you. Call us at 888-988-JOSH, and I'll show you how my 60-40 portfolio is superior from a risk-reward and diversification standpoint and tax efficiency. But what he found is if you have a 40% stock, 60% bond portfolio, the star portfolio has a similar return, a strong return, and less of a drawdown risk. So in the month of March of 2020, so basically month-end data, the S&P had a drawdown of 20%, where the star portfolio, as he calls it, had a drawdown of 2%. By adding a gold weight of 14.1%. He says 25.7% U.S. stocks, 14.1% gold, 54.6% treasuries, which really haven't done that hot this year, and something called the commodity index, I believe GSCI of 5.6. I'm not in love with this mix, by the way. I would not do this mix, but I found it interesting that you could have, this is what I would call like if you were like 70 and you don't want much risk with your money, those would very well blend in different market cycles. I will tell you that gold has weighted down a portfolio the last couple months. Gold has not been hot. But there's a difference between, here, we've got a lot of like real life financial tips today. The amygdala, watch it. Watch how your own amygdala reacts. Fear, greed. Okay, I'm going to sell everything. Sell it all. No, you don't want to do that. Versus have a well-diversified, balanced portfolio of low-cost indexes, weighted, a little gold for inflation hedge. So I like gold as inflation hedge, big time. I think it's a good hedge against inflation. Did well earlier in the part of the year when we had this inflationary spike. This could be a sign of deflation, by the way, that gold is starting to go down. I want to get David Ranson's take on that. So, good tips. Don't let politics influence your money too much. Now, you do want to let politics influence your money in how you plan for taxes down the road, because probably taxes are going up. But what I mean is, construct a portfolio you'd be okay with if we had a Democrat or Republican in the White House. Like, don't just, because too many people get too unnerved. Now, if you're unnerved, we do have a portfolio called the tactical portfolio, where we literally have a kill switch to where we could go all to cash if we needed to. And some people like that because it keeps them in the market. Now, some people like a strategically diversified portfolio. It just depends on, the best portfolio is the one you cannot vomit when the market's down 40%. Write that down. The best portfolio is the one that you do not vomit if the market goes down. So, any questions from what I'm saying, Ernesto, that you say?
Sure, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So in reading your book,
although I don't want to talk about Bitcoin, marijuana, or China anymore.
No. In reading your book, you give a lot of anecdotal stories of different scenarios. I think the first example you gave in your book was a guy who didn't trust anybody. He had just lost a lot of money, and he was very reticent about signing up with anyone, and he ended up being a long-term client of yours.
Sure.
Have you ever had someone that came in, their finances were in disarray, and they took your advice, and almost like a great coach, you were like a turnaround king for them?
I have been a turnaround king for some people. I would tell people most turnaround people are not worth my time because they will not do the steps necessary. So if I have a listener and you're like, I have 20 grand to invest, we'll help you. But you got to want to help yourself. And I find that people do not take, now in this way I sound like Dave Ramsey, who I don't necessarily agree with on certain things. You got to take the steps necessary, cut cable, read books, go to the library. You know, you have to take the steps necessary, I think, to live on like 2 to 3 grand a month, which is tough, but I did it. And then you develop an emergency fund. Then you start saving, and then you have the money to go on vacations and trips. And a lot of people won't do that, but we'll help. I mean, we'll help anybody as a firm if somebody's willing to. It's just sometimes people are not willing to live ascetically. And that is, I think, the biggest. You don't need more than about 3 grand a month to live if you play your cards right. You can be frugal with food and frugal with, you got rent or mortgage, home insurance, savings, food. What else do you really need to spend money on? And that's really where, you don't need Netflix. You don't need Amazon Prime. You don't need really anything. Maybe you need a Costco membership. Costco can help your money. Because if you like good food, you can slice up. You can buy the salmon for $40 and you can slice it up just so. But to me, we don't mind helping anybody as a firm at 888-988-JOSH. It's really, because we've had turnaround stories. I've had people in their early 20s. I remember we had one client, she brought her children there. Guy was like a teacher. He didn't make a ton. And 50 grand a year, and he was able to save $250,000 by the time he got married. And he was like 30 then.
That's
so
impressive.
He went from like 22 to 30 on a teacher's salary, saved a decent amount of money. And it was interesting. I think he married someone and were like, dude, why are you saving this amount of money? It was like unheard of. And that's a tip. If you want to be financially successful, save 15% of what you make for 20, 30 years. Do that. Be financially successful. I don't care who you are. Put that 15% on the mattress and you'll be fine. Not really, but you get my point. So let's go to the listener calls. The listener, anybody have a YouTube question? You could type it in the chat box. Next question from Ernesto. Go ahead.
Oh, from me?
Yeah.
Well, I just read an article. The reason why, to preface that question, I just read an article that, millennials' average income of this certain group is like over 100,000, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck. So the one thing I like about your show is there's a lot of practical advice. But people, I guess like what you're saying, you have to take that first step. The first, start putting away 15% of your income. There's a whole world out there, brother, who needs your services, who are making money, but they're not making their money.
Well, they got to call 888-988-JOSH for the free review. But if I have somebody and they really can't save 15%, I tell them save 5. If they can't save 5, I will say, hey, I don't think we're a good fit because you don't really care about yourself that much. Because here's the thing, my parents destroyed their lives due to listening to the type of advice that many people listen to, that's buy term and invest the difference. That plagues, by the way, churches. So here's the interesting thing. There are whole groups that you go to a church, they tell you, we're going to do a financial course and you have to pay $100 to $200. Folks, if your church is doing that, we'll do that for free. They charge $100 to $200. Oh, by the way, and they take credit card, but then they tell you to cut up the credit cards. So it's just stupidity. Because here's the thing. Let's say you're very ascetic. Let's say you make 100 grand a year and I teach you how to save 30 grand a year. Because 100 grand a year, you don't really make 100. You make 80 because of taxes, you got insurance. So you might make 75 to 80. Then you got food. What I do with the credit cards is then that provides your vacation budget of $2,500 a year. So you have to learn how to pay off credit cards on a monthly basis, because then that could provide fun. So when my wife and I lived on, I don't know, $2,000 a month when we were in our 20s, and it was $2,000 a month, we used the credit card points to go on a honeymoon once a year. And we were ascetic. This is what we did. We would go because we were pretty healthy. My wife's very fit, more fit than I am. We would buy salmon from the grocery store. It was great. We would cook it on the George Foreman grill. Tasted good. And we had no kids at the time. Now we have 7 kids. And then we would buy like low fat, like ground meat. And that would be our basically food every other night. It'd be like salmon, chicken, salmon, chicken. And then we do chicken breast. So it'd be like salmon, chicken, ground beef. And we would take this salsa that tasted really good with the chicken. I gotta get it. It was like an Utz salsa. And we would mix it up with, my wife since has become like a gourmet cook. But at that time, we were like, college students eating. But, that's pretty good. It's better than ramen. So we had salmon, some white fish, sometimes chicken, lean stuff, and veggies. And we had a steamer. We didn't go out to eat because we didn't have any money. We'd go to like Blockbuster. This is before Netflix, and we would treat ourselves occasionally. At that time, Blockbuster had like a $10 a month thing, just like Netflix. You could do any of the videos you wanted, and that would be like our date night because we didn't have cable because we were, cheap. And at one time we were poor. Basically, we had nothing other than $2,000 a month. We're living paycheck to paycheck, having $60,000 of credit card debt. This is when I was 23. And within a year, we got rid of all the credit card debt. You got to up your income, number one. You got to save 15%. And then when I started making about $100,000 a year, I literally saved $27,000. So after I made $3,000 a month, so when I was making, let's say, $60,000 a year, I saved $27,000 of the 60. Then when I made 100, I saved 60 of the 100. So you got to do stuff like that for like a few years to get ahead. It's not that hard to get ahead, but I would say the first 3 years it's hard because you have to be okay with like, going out with your friends. I saw you, it looks like you had a nice night out.
Oh yeah, last night.
You got to be willing to be made fun of. So no drinks for me. You're not going to buy the ladies a drink. You're not going to buy yourself a drink. You're going to buy water, and they're going to look at you like, why are you there? But then you go, you have fun. So what I did when I was young, I was made fun of because I would have a bag of nuts and raisins. So I literally did not buy anything when we went out to eat. And my friend worked at a restaurant, and they made fun of us. Fun of me. It was like Cool Beans in Toms River, New Jersey. They worked at Cool. And the guy who owned it was Eddie. He would be like, why is this dude here every day? Occasionally, they made a really good mint chocolate chip. They made a phenomenal mint chocolate chip espresso or something. It was better than anything Starbucks ever made. And I would spend the money on that. That was like a little treat. But I didn't buy anything else. So so I would eat in the car. So I wouldn't be rude, or I'd bring it in the building, and my friends all saved money. No, they spent money. I saved. So, but you got to be looked at a little bit weird. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, You're
saying you have to be willing to make those tough choices in the short term, so that you can have that there in the long term. And
that's what I did, and. I remember like we had friends because we went to the same church, Ernesto and I, those of you who don't know, we had, friends like they were very gracious. They would invite us over as single guys. And, you could pretty much go out like to different people's houses. They would treat you. So sometimes you'd get some good meals. I wasn't really, in hindsight, that was kind of cheap and rude of me, I guess. But I don't think the people felt that. I think they felt like they were taking care of a college student. By the way, I was volunteering to help most of their kids. I think I made like a pittance one summer as the youth minister.
I think you have my little twin brothers in your
your twin brothers.
group.
They were great. And then, I think I got like a love offering one summer or something, but it wasn't really, a good living. but I did what I did then, so I didn't make really much money. So folks, you too can become a financial success by living ascetically. And this was a great hour. I want to thank you all for joining us. So my financial tip of the day, be ascetic, fight the amygdala, and call us at 888-988-JOSH. If you want a tax plan for your money, a lot of you are concerned about rising taxes and the death of the stretch, which we really didn't have much time to talk about, which is kind of funny. That was the title of the YouTube. But the death of the stretch, and this is the final segment of the show, so I'm going to give the final tip. If you have an IRA, you can no longer stretch it to your heirs unless they have a special needs. So you have to have a plan for your IRA. So you either want to Roth it, and then your heirs get the money, 10 years of tax-free growth, or you want to drain the IRA before you die, put that money in either one of three things. An insurance policy, which grows tax-free, pulls it out tax-free, and when you die, it goes tax-free. So long as you abide by Section 7702 of the IRS code. Tip number 2, you might want to take that money and buy stock that doesn't pay a dividend. Or tip number 3, ETFs that don't pay dividends. So give us a call, 888-988-JOSH. Be sure to check us out Saturday and Sunday at 9 on WOR, also our iHeartRadio app, and our new Spotify show, Financial Quarterback Inside the Huddle, commercial free. So if you go, I don't like your commercials, you get no commercials when you listen to Spotify. And call us at 888-988-JOSH, and you get 3 free gifts when you schedule your no-obligation 45-minute wealth blueprint. Give us a call, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-JOSH. Thank you for joining us, 888-988-JOSH.